You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the season premiere of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Hegemony, Part 2. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Jason Tyler. Hey, Father.
Hello.
Folks, be sure to stick around. We have more of your great listener feedback at the end of the show. And be sure to get your very own Secrets of Star Trek t-shirt or other merchandise by visiting sqpn.com/merch. So, Jimmy, can you give us a recap of Hegemony Part 2?
This week, we get the conclusion to last season's cliffhanger. The Gorn have beamed a bunch of human colonists and several Enterprise crew members off of a planet. Captain Patel has also been infected with Gorn offspring. Captain Pike has been ordered to rendezvous with the Federation fleet, but first he engages long enough with the Gorn to tag the ship with the colonists with a tracker. Later, at the rendezvous with the fleet, he's given unofficial orders to covertly engage with the Gorn and find a way to make them respect us. Scotty and Pelia find a way to hack the Gorn friend or foe system and think that the Enterprise is one of their own ships. Spock and Christine find a way to treat but not cure Captain Patel's Gorn infection, and the kidnapped Enterprise crew members find the Gorn transporter codes needed to rescue the colonists. They then steal a Gorn fighter ship to get the codes to the Enterprise. Uhura and Number 1 have figured out that Gorn activity is linked to stellar activity, and current stellar activity suggests that they're prepared for a major period of hunting and will launch a full-scale invasion of the Federation. They start to do that, but Pike uses the information about stellar activity to simulate the kind of flare that will return them to their hibernation cycle. So they all return to their home planet and go to sleep, just like at the end of Best of Both Worlds. When they used a sleep command to put the Borg to sleep before their ship mysteriously self-destructed. So in the end, Captain Patel is successfully treated, but not yet out of the woods. The colonists and crew members have been rescued, and the Gorn invasion has been averted. The end.
Father, what'd you think of this one?
Oh, overall, I liked it. I thought it was, a good conclusion to the cliffhanger we had seen from the last season. There was some definite overlap with Best of Both Worlds. I had the same thought, when they start talking about having the Gorn hibernate. But really, even when Batel is infected with the Gorn, in Part 1, there's that parallel to Picard having become Locutus, and suddenly you've got a good guy, as it were, that's being co-opted by the enemy and potentially becomes a major problem in that way. In some ways, some of the things that happen you can sort of expect, but I like a couple of the little differences. The dud torpedo becoming a tracker was a neat thing that I don't remember seeing something like that before. So overall, a good episode. I wouldn't call it great, but a good episode.
How about you, Jimmy?
Yeah, I'd pretty much agree. I thought it was too similar to Best of Both Worlds, especially given that it's Part 2 of a season cliffhanger. That just highlights attention to it. If they wanted to use the put them all to sleep solution, that would be better in a one-parter in the middle of a season. But when you do it in your first episode back from the season break, it's like, okay, I've been here, I've seen this. Having said that, it's a good episode. It's got interesting stuff. The one thing that's really missing, though, is after the Gorn go back to their home planet and go to sleep, their home planet does not mysteriously self-destruct for no apparent reason. I mean, come on. I need closure. I need to see a mysterious, unexplained self-destruction,
If they ever make Star Trek Legacy, that will be when the Gorn reemerge from their hibernation 100-something years later. You know what I mean? That the Gorn will be back if Star Trek ever manages to continue in the future. That should be interesting. Or maybe they'll show up in Starfleet Academy, that one, 1,000 years in the future.
If they do, I won't see it.
We haven't discussed that possibility of what we're going to do about Starfleet Academy. So I like this one. Lots of action. Seemed like a fast resolution. Like the action kind of wraps up pretty quick. It felt like, I don't know. Maybe I'm used to streaming series where they take things over an arc of episodes to resolve things, but that's fine. It was still good. I like the Gorn as a villain. They're very alien. They, that's the thing I like. They're not just, like the Klingons and the Romulans, who are kind of humans, but with certain characteristics taken to a bit of a edge. This is truly an alien creature, and I like that. Like the fact that their ships are a massive digestion chamber for people they've captured. That's super creepy. That's very much like Ridley Scott's Alien movies, that sort of thing.
Yeah, in a way, it's even more because they never got weapons out of a pile of partially digested crew people that had been sloughed off by the ship, or as they put it in the show, weapons from a crap pile. right. I mean, even the fact that Ortega's, she like her hand was partially digested, which was super creepy. I mean, that was wow. One of the things I don't like about the Gorn is this idea that their ship sensors don't detect the shape of things. Like you can fool their sensors just by sending out the right transponder. So like Enterprise can just, fly along and not be recognized. And how do you avoid running into things in that case if you don't know the shape of the thing that you're seeing? You know, presumably they have some, as part of their friend or foe system, they must generate some kind of 3D map and like, okay, stay away from this area because we're picking up a transponder over here. So there is a way you could do it, but it does seem implausible. I mean, they've got eyes,
right?
So you'd think they would be visually oriented to the extent they'd at least want to see silhouettes.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's that you have to suspend disbelief in order to kind of go with it, and it's I'll take that if we can get a truly alien species. That's what I like that we've got in Star Trek finally a truly alien species. Another interesting aspect is the additions this new season. We're getting some new crew members, it looks like. And certainly the biggest addition in this episode is Scotty, who we saw in the cliffhanger. But it's interesting to see Scotty not as chief engineer, the confident miracle worker that we've always, known. But now he's still kind of brilliant, but he's insecure and averse to risks. Won't do the extra thing. I thought that was interesting.
I did too. It was one of the notes I made was this is Scotty lacking confidence, still very smart, but knows what's going on, but not confident about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our characters are going to grow from something. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like his interactions with Pelia. It's not something I would have predicted they would do.
Yeah.
But with her as his former professor in engineering and her knowledge of him, it's like you perform under pressure. So I'm going to put you under more pressure to make you perform.
Yes.
That, I mean, there's one point where she rushes into engineering where he's trying to hack the friend or foe system like he did before. And he didn't take notes on it the first time because, excuse me, we were under combat conditions. I didn't have time to take notes.
Right.
But she runs into engineering and she's like, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. And that gives him the pressure he needs to figure it out.
Yes.
The other thing that's interesting about that pressure side of things and him working well under pressure was it comes up somewhere either in the original series or in the movies or somewhere where it seems he's quadrupling his estimates on how long it'll take to fix something, right? So he was, in giving those longer estimates of time, he's actually taking pressure off himself rather than potentially using some pressure to motivate himself to get something done quickly.
That comes up among other places in the Relics crossover with Next Gen.
Ah, that's right.
Yes.
Where I think it's mentioned earlier, like in it's at least alluded to in Search for Whales.
Yeah,
but I know they make it explicit in Relics where he's talking to Geordi, and it's like you didn't tell him how long it would really take you, did you?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I think in the Search for Whales, it was. How do you think I kept my reputation as a miracle worker?
Yeah.
I always do my estimates times 4. I like we're seeing the early stages of characters that we know and love later on because we're in prequel territory. And if we ever get a Kirk, Spock, Enterprise series with the new actors to see how they're continuing to grow. I saw an interview with Paul Wesley, who plays Jim Kirk, and talking about how he had to make this decision: do I play Jim Kirk as Shatner, or do I do something different? And he realized, look, he's not captain yet. He's not quite there yet. I'm going to do some things. I'm going to certainly want a continuity of this amazing character, but I'm going to be different. And I like that they're trying to do something a little different with the characters we know and love without really doing violence to the character we love.
He doesn't, for example, talk the way William Shatner talks, although he is known for his diction.
The dramatic pauses. He did say that he got blessings from Shatner on his Kirk, so that's nice.
One thing that I'm curious about, and have been since the beginning, I can see how they can bring in Scotty and bring him along and stuff, and have him end up as chief engineer and Pelia retire and things like that. That all makes sense. But one thing I've been curious about since the beginning, since we have Dr. Mbenga aboard the ship, how is the handover to McCoy going to work? Because Dr. Mbenga is built up as he's the chief medical officer of the ship. He knows everything that needs to be known, and he's still on the Enterprise in Kirk's time, because we see him in a few episodes of the original series. So how do they bring in McCoy and make him chief medical officer?
Yeah. I've wondered about that. Perhaps he gets demoted. Remember, he's got his daughter in suspended animation in a transporter or something, right? Does that get discovered and he gets demoted as a result? Or
maybe his war background comes out in a way it shouldn't, and he gets caught for murdering that Klingon or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Or some kind of PTSD where he, just can't handle the responsibilities of being in charge of the sick bay, so he steps back. I can see several different ways they could do it.
Or he could leave Starfleet for a while and come back, and
right. This will come up more in our next episode when we talk about Wedding Bell Blues. But the other thing that really has got me wondering, and it kind of came up in this episode, that's why I'm bringing it now, we'll talk about more later, is the Spock-Chapel relationship. In TOS, I'm sorry, there is no hint of any Rye relationship. And so they're really going outside of canon with this.
I couldn't hear what you said. There's no hint of any what kind of relationship?
Prior,
okay.
Right. There's no hint that Spock and Nurse Chapel had something. And I get it. You can vary things a little bit and kind of insert stuff, which is what they've been doing.
There's clearly the implication that Chapel had the hots for Spock. That's definitely there.
Yes.
And I wouldn't view this as breaking canon or anything, what they're doing now. They're just exploring why does she have the hots for him later on, and why is it unrequited?
Right. I guess so.
I was glad that they are finally going to deal, because she's got this fellowship to study for 3 months with Roger Corby, that they're going to deal with him in this, because that's something, as soon as they started establishing a Chapel-Spock relationship in Strange New Worlds, I'm like, okay, but she's going to go off and get engaged to Roger Corby. And what about that? We need to see that. And so they're going to be exploring that this season.
Right. That'll be interesting. We've started that in the next episode. So as far as this story goes, there's a couple of things that leap out for me. One of the things that kind of bothered me in Hegemony Part 1 that continues in Part 2 is this idea that we have this colony of people from Earth that are outside the Federation, quote unquote, that for some reason don't deserve to receive protection from Starfleet because they're technically not in the Federation. I mean, it's still like people from Earth.
It's sort of like the Maquis. They're living outside of Federation territory, in territory that the Federation has ceded to the Cardassians. And they're kind of, you're on your own. You're not within our borders, and you chose to go outside of our borders, and we're limited in what we can do. We're not going to provoke a major war because you guys decided to move to a bad neighborhood.
Right.
And I think it's essentially the same thing here. They don't go into the background of how this happened.
Right.
But basically they chose to move out of Federation territory, and the Federation is not going to end up in a major war with the Gorn over this group of people who chose to move to a bad neighborhood.
Right. Even though it wasn't Gorn territory when they moved there. No one knew it was Gorn territory.
Well, same thing with the Maquis, and they didn't know, the borders changed as a result of the Cardassian War.
Yeah, yeah. Although it's like it is slightly different, but you're right. Like this idea is, do we potentially put trillions of people at risk for the sake of this one colony? To protect it. To go to war with the Gorn over this one colony, and risk. After just having got out of the Klingon War, that kind of comes up. Like Starfleet is still rebuilding from the Klingon War. We can't afford to get into another war right away. It kind of brings up that point we keep bringing up, which is Starfleet is a military. It keeps getting into wars. That as much as they want to just be an exploration service.
One thing I did like about this is that when they head to the rendezvous, well, I like two things. So the first one is, at the end of last season's cliffhanger, they're ordered to return to the Federation, and they get that order reiterated at the beginning of this one. And like Uhura, I think it is, tells Pike, Admiral April has said, you need to come back. And his question is, did he say immediately? Mm-hmm. And so he finds a loophole that lets him delay long enough. He does go back. He doesn't just defy orders, which is one way they subverted the trope of the defiant commander defying orders. So they subverted in that way. He does go back, but he also finds a loophole to let him tag the Gorn ship so they can find it later. And then when he actually gets to the rendezvous, Admiral April is not Admiral Nechayev telling Picard, you must not go do this. Instead, he's telling him, go do this, just do it covertly. I like that they, find a way to make the Gorn respect us. I like that they didn't play the Pike must defy orders to save people trope in either instance. So I like that they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they built in like this idea of learning about the Gorn into their response. Like April is, he's the admiral on the spot. He's there to do things, and he's flexible. He's willing to take in new information and make new decisions, as opposed to, no, this is orders from on high, and this is the only thing we're going to do, and don't you dare disobey me. They're willing to do things, within boundaries. Go do it, but do it. Don't start a war. Basically, was it because he understands he's human. Mm-hmm. I like that.
I also like seeing April again. I think I mentioned this previously, but they've for Hollywood reasons, they've race swapped two of the characters. They've race swapped Robert April and also Commander Kyle, the transporter chief.
Yeah,
who we haven't really seen this season. And may not, given that we have Scotty here now, and he can run the transporter. But both of these characters had previously been established as white, and now they're not. And okay, that's fine. But you've given me, who knows the history of the show, a conundrum with, well, how do I resolve this? And the way I've chosen to resolve it, since they've been using, injections of to change people's species so that Spock can become a human and humans can become Vulcans and stuff like that. And they all became that other race in like episode 1 of the show. It's like, okay, what race you are now is a matter of cosmetics. So if you want to be black for a while, great, you go be black. You want to be Asian for a while, great, you go be Asian. You want to be white for a while, great, go be white. Doesn't matter. I really like that.
A race neutral future that would be nice. A future where race doesn't matter. That would be nice. So we have this whole thing with the Gorn homeworld is between two binary stars. Binary stars again, and hidden because you can't just fly around the binary stars. So for some reason, you have to go between them to get to it. It's a weird.
Yeah, they could explain it better, and it's also kind of problematic because they're clearly an interstellar species. They have multiple planets. La'an has been having PTSD flashbacks to a Gorn breeder planet. So they can't, it would seem like they can't be tied to the stellar cycle of this one pair of suns. But they somehow are. It's just a little janky.
Yeah.
It is. And Pike's idea, and I'm not sure if they actually end up doing this to completion, but his idea is to use the Enterprise to go between the stars and create something called an X-flare, which will cause the Gorn to hibernate.
An X-flare is just a particularly intense solar flare. We have, our sun throws off X-flares.
Okay.
This is a standard part of solar weather. We have it here in the solar system. So it's not that big of a deal. The problem is if one of these really big flares hit Earth directly, it could melt out a bunch of our electrical grid that has not been hardened against such things. It would be, and Earth was hit by such a flare in the 1800s. It's what's known as the Carrington event, and it caused telegraph lines to melt.
Right.
And so there are things that if we ever got hit directly in the present state, it would be bad. But fortunately, there are ways to harden the grid against that. We just haven't done them yet.
Because we're like that. We don't do the thing that we should do until it's too late.
It just takes one Carrington event when you have a functional internet to teach you lessons you needed to learn previously.
Right. So Scotty's response to Pike's idea is to say it can't be done without destroying the Enterprise. And I like Pike just says, I like the odds. We'll just turn it off before we blow up. It's so cavalier. It's like, it'll work. It'll be fine. You'll just turn it off before it goes too bad. And Scotty is just horrified, as all the engineers should be. Let's talk about Captain Battelle a bit in her situation. Going back to the Mbenga question, is there only one doctor on the Enterprise such that a nurse has to be performing surgery?
Well, apparently at this point, the crew is only half the size it is during Kirk's time.
I guess.
In one of the first 4 episodes, I forget which one, the question comes up of how many people are on this ship, and the answer is like 203, which is less than half the 430 that were on it in Kirk's time.
Yeah.
So they do have a smaller number of people. They've also blurred the boundaries between doctors and nurses, which is not surprising. I mean, originally in Western medicine, nurses were not allowed to do much more than stand by your bed and pray for you. They really couldn't do that much. And they've gradually taken over more and more of the functions of doctors, to the point that in a Community episode, Jeff Winger meets a nurse and she threatens to take action on something if he doesn't comply with her wishes. And he says, or what? You'll do twice the work for half the pay? Referring to doctors. And so I wouldn't be at all surprised that nurses will continue to take on more and more medical functions in the future, especially with technological assistance and stuff. There's no reason, if you've got AI diagnosis and mechanical surgery and things like that, there's no reason you need a specialist degree to do those things anymore in the future. They will become so routine that even advanced medical procedures, many of them could be done by nurses.
Right. I mean, even in today's world, we have nurse practitioners now who do a lot of what doctors used to do. I mean, more often than not, you see a nurse practitioner when you go to your doctor's office these days, instead of the doctor themselves. So yeah, I guess I could see that. That does make a little sense. Now, there's this whole, the way the Gorn reproduce is by laying eggs inside of living bodies, and then they hatch, a la Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien. And there's this whole question, the morality and ethics of dealing with someone infected with a Gorn hatchling. Do we euthanize them to save them the incredible?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that would be moral, to euthanize someone who's going to have a Gorn hatchling burst out of them.
Principle of double effect.
Yeah.
You're essentially targeting the Gorn hatchlings, and the death of the host is not intended, it's not desired, it's a foreseen but unintended consequence of your assault, so to speak, on the Gorn hatchlings, which is a self-defense type of attack.
Because the Gorn hatchlings are aggressors.
Exactly.
Even if they're not morally responsible,
Right.
because their consciousness may be too primitive to understand what they're doing, they are practically speaking aggressors. It's like if a human has had a stroke that's left them mentally incapacitated, so they're not personally responsible for their actions, but nevertheless they become homicidal and are attacking you like a zombie. You can use lethal force to defend yourself against an aggression like that, even if the person is not responsible for the aggression.
Do the method you use to respond, does that make a difference? Like, can you just
you want to deal with the situation with the least degree of violence necessary. So if you've got a way to get the Gorn offspring out of there, you want to use that over directly killing them.
Right.
Okay. Can you inject the victim with like a overdose of morphine to put them to sleep and kill them that way? Like, is that morally acceptable? I just kind of figure out the limits of what you can do.
So I'm unsure about the parameters of the example you just gave. You can use palliative care, or you could, give someone morphine to put them to sleep, but are you proposing that the morphine itself will kill them, or?
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
Can you directly kill the host instead of going, if you kill the host, it will kill the Gorn, but can you kill the host first, or do you have to go after the Gorn first? I'm just kind of, I know it's a fine distinction. But
if you're planning on bringing the person back, you could hypothetically introduce a state of clinical death that you're going to reverse if it will bring you the outcome of getting rid of the aggressor.
Okay. But
that's how I'd look at it. Father, you're the medical moral guy for the diocese. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, it should be targeting the Gorn hatchlings, and the death of the patient should be either simultaneous with the death of the Gorn hatchlings, or possibly after it. You need to think about how you're again going after the aggressor and leaving the patient as it were the side effect. And but I mean, you're kind of limited here in terms of capabilities and how exactly do you attack the Gorn in this case. And I think the stasis idea at the beginning was a good one, because it's all right, we just keep her frozen and nothing happens with her or with the Gorn in that case. But then, as things move along, I think the ideal would be, you maybe remove the Gorn hatchlings before they hatch, and that way they die. And if that operation kills Captain Battelle, well, that's sad, but it's an acceptable side effect loss in the process.
Okay.
Although I think Dom was envisioning only inducing clinical death in Captain Battelle.
No, I was thinking like she asked them to euthanize her.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, in that case, and you can't kill Captain Battelle directly in order to directly and permanently in order to deal with the Gorn. What you could do is temporarily interrupt, say, cardiac function. I mean, we even do that today for various surgeries. We need to take someone's heart offline so we can do this surgery on them, and then we start the heart again. So that's not irreversible death. That's just clinical death.
Right.
But if you're talking, we're going to irreversibly unalive Captain Battelle, then no, you can't do that.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to spend a few minutes on it, because this is one of the things I love about Star Trek, is it brings up these questions. It does address, these issues of humanity that we encounter in the show. In this, in the midst of entertainment, we also get a little bit of these interesting philosophical questions, and so I wanted to kind of deal with that. But the ultimate solution is the typical Star Trek one, which is we come up with a technological solution that no one thought of before, which is feed the hatchlings so they don't come out, so they don't emerge to feed, and then dissolve them inside Captain Battelle using Una's Illyrian blood, which is incredibly ironic given that Captain Battelle was the prosecutor in Una's trial last season for being the secret Illyrian. So I thought that was an interesting situation, and probably will present interesting future problems for Captain Patel. I would assume, now that she's got Illyrian blood running through her veins. So we'll have to see where that goes. So we have this long hibernation with the Gorn. When will they emerge again? I was saying maybe during Star Trek Legacy, although we do have one that does emerge against Kirk in Arena, but that seems to be an artificial situation, right?
Well, I don't know why you'd say it's artificial. We're not given any indication that Gorn hibernate in that episode, so that issue didn't come up.
But I mean, they've emerged from this hibernation, apparently, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but that didn't mean it's artificial. We don't know how long their hibernation lasts. It may be a year, and they may be back in season 4.
That's true. That's true. It may not be a long hibernation. That's true. Okay.
So I have 2 more things, since we're getting towards the end of the episode, that I want to make sure we talk about. One of them is the group that's of our 4 main Enterprise people who are aboard the Gorn vessel that's digesting all the colonists, and they come up with a way to rescue all of the colonists, which is we've got transporter codes that are going to let Enterprise beam everybody out in a flash, and that's how they're going to save everybody. And we've got to get these codes to Enterprise. Well, they kind of magically find the codes without really trying to. Yeah. And then they can't just open a covert channel, to the Enterprise and say, here are the codes, please beam us all out. Instead, they decide they have to go on a shuttle, a Gorn shuttle, to get the codes to the Enterprise. And it's not clear to me why they have to do that. Because they don't have to land on the Enterprise. They just have to be in control of the Gorn shuttle's transmitter. And so they, in practice, go on this escapade of we're stealing this Gorn shuttle, and then once we're outside of the Gorn ship, we're going to beam the transporter codes. We're going to not beam, but we're going to transmit the transporter codes over to the Enterprise so they can save all the colonists. And I don't understand the necessity of them doing it that way, but what my real criticism is the role of Ortegas in this, because they present her as this magical pilot who can pilot anything, which is itself not credible. I mean, I may know how to use an iPhone really good, but that doesn't mean you give me an Android and I'm going to know how to use that really good.
Right.
But they present her as this magical pilot, and then to create more drama, they injure her on the Gorn ship before they get the shuttle. And then they get the shuttle, and she's injured, and Mbenga is ready to take over. He's ready to pilot the ship. And Ortegas is like, no, it must be me. And I'm like, why? Why does it have to be you? Surely there are other competent pilots here, and if the ship is similar enough to Federation technology that you can fly it, probably someone else can fly it too. So I just found that I don't mind Ortegas being this really good pilot who can fly the Enterprise really well and has some competency with a wide range of ships, and even maybe can figure out how to fly a Gorn one, maybe. But the idea that she's the only one and it must be her, and it's like, okay, this is straining suspension of disbelief here. You're snapping me out of the show.
It's a long-standing issue in Star Trek, this idea that they show up on an alien ship and they can read the alien writing, and they can figure out how the controls work, because somehow every alien has decided to build every ship in some standard way where the controls work the same, which is kind of ridiculous, but it's what they do.
I do like the scene in Star Trek 3, Search for Spock, where they've got the Klingon bird of prey and they're having to try to figure it out on the fly, and they're no, this one, press this one.
Yeah, that was good. I was going to say, in Enterprise, they had that episode where Hoshi has to translate the controls, and that was a little better. The other thing is the Ortegas thing. I think they were recalling that episode last season where they all forgot who they were, and Ortegas kept saying, "I am, Eric Ortegas. I pilot the ship." And she was and I think she was hanging on to that thing, and repeating it as a mantra. But yeah, they should have said, "Okay, yes, you pilot the ship. Now go sit over here and stop bleeding out all over the controls and let us fly the ship for you." That did, push the suspension of disbelief. There is another.
Well, the other thing I wanted to bring up is at the end when Captain Pike comes in to Captain Patel.
That's what I was going to talk about.
He prays.
Yeah.
And that's nice. They set this up actually in his second season in Discovery, in the second season of Discovery where he featured, because he said then that his dad was a science teacher who also taught comparative religion. And they showed Captain Pike having a greater knowledge of religious belief than other people commonly did. I had thought he also mentioned his sister, but maybe he didn't. What I found upon looking it up was his dad. And in this episode, he comes in to sickbay and he sees Captain Patel laying there unconscious. And he looks up at heaven and then he says, okay, Dad, you win. And he's clearly talking to his father, his earthly father, although some people who I guess maybe don't remember the background to that about his dad have thought he's talking to God at that point. And, Dad is a little over familiar with God unless you're Jesus.
Yeah.
But he then starts to pray the Lord's Prayer. And he only gets the first line out, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And then Captain Patel wakes up. But I thought this was a nice moment. It was a poignant moment where someone who is raised in a skeptical environment. Now we're later going to find out Captain Pike was raised Catholic. He was raised he was an altar boy when he was small. But there have been lots of people who've wandered from their faith until a personal crisis brings them back to it. And it was, I thought, an effective move-in thing to have this exchange, even if it's cut short. It also is interesting because back when season 2 of Discovery aired, I remember there being rumors of reshoots because they had written Captain Pike as much more a person of faith than what they showed on screen. In fact, I remember one Hollywood insider complaining that he was a fundamentalist Catholic, which I'm sure is Hollywood insider hyperbole.
Right.
But he's probably a fairly modest, tepid Catholic. But they allegedly it was considered even too much for Hollywood, and so they did some reshoots, and maybe that's when they transferred it to his father or something like that. But it was nice to see them bringing this back after all this time.
It is nice to have on Star Trek a religious character from Earth. I mean, we've had the Bajoran religion was prominent in DS9, but to have a positive, religious character, someone who, or at least an expression of religious faith of some sort from Earth. It's really great. You don't see it very often in Hollywood in mainstream. The only other character that comes to mind that I know of who's been outwardly Catholic is Deacon from the TV show SWAT, who's a Catholic dad who very vocally Catholic about his faith. It comes up in also situations. Daredevil, yes, thank you. That was the another one.
In Star Trek, we have had Cassidy Yates has been implied to be a Christian. But they weren't as explicit about it as they were here with Captain Pike. But it's like if aliens can have religion, there should still be some human religions around. You ought to show it at least some of the time. And it was nice that they finally did that here.
Yeah. So, any other notes on this one, Father?
Nope. That was the last thing I was going to mention as well.
Okay. And Jimmy, you're all set?
Yep.
All right. So let's get to that listener feedback. This was on our discussion of the DS9 episode Duet. Kelly on YouTube writes, "This episode is a favorite of mine. It's not just my favorite of season 1. It's one of my favorites of the series. Both Harris Yulin and Nana Visitor are incredible. For a cheap bottle episode, it is very impactful. Harris Yulin's turn from, hey, you got the wrong man, to him going full over-the-top villain and then swinging back to the damaged and guilt-ridden man he truly is was a masterful performance. I can imagine that his "Kill Bajoran scum" speech was inspired by monologues he heard from the real Gul Darheel. Yeah, Harris Yulin is one of the great guest appearances on Star Trek. Yeah, it was excellent. And then Truly Awesome New Mexico Catholic on the same episode says, very good episode, thanks. I really like how Jimmy tries to spot where each of the characters is used, even in a story that might not lend itself to that character. Also, all the courtroom drama happening before a thing goes to court is how real life works. In the rare case that actually goes to trial, all those things have been worked out long before.
And that does tend to happen. There aren't surprises these days in American court cases. At least that's the goal, is not to have surprises.
Yes, you really get the Perry Mason moment.
Yeah. And I do note when actors get their paychecks earned. It's just part of the process of having followed. It actually started when I was watching Babylon 5, because I watched it when it was originally on the air, and the series creator, J. Michael Straczynski, was very active on the internet at the time. And so I'd follow Straczynski, and he would talk about production and all of the behind the scenes stuff. And that's when I learned about, okay, they each need a line in order to get paid. And so that has led to me noticing whenever they're trying to shoehorn in lines so all the regular cast can get paid, even if it doesn't make a lot of sense for that character to have a line in this episode.
Yep. You see that on Stargate a lot. All right. So that's our feedback. Thank you, everyone. We love getting your feedback. And now we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Star Trek, including Noreen G, John A, Michael C, Naomi S, and Dan H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of Hegemony Part 2? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send us an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And you can also watch The Secrets of Star Trek on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. Now, we'll be back next time. And when I say next time, for the next several weeks, you're going to be getting 2 episodes of Secrets of Star Trek a week as we get caught up to Strange New Worlds. So next time, presumably within a few hours, we'll be discussing Wedding Bell Blues, the very next episode of Strange New Worlds this season.
I thought you meant the song by the Fifth Dimension. Okay.
That's going to be a very different episode of Secrets of Star Trek. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And Father Jason Tyler, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, perhaps we just need a little faith.